UN investigators are accusing both the Syrian government and the opposition of committing war crimes, including killings and torture in the country's civil war. Well, the panel is also warning against foreign weapons supplies in what it called an increasingly radicalised conflict. That as Britain fights to lift an EU arms embargo so that weapons can be funneled to the rebels. Let's now talk to Neil Clark, a journalist and contributor to Britain's Guardian newspaper, I should say, who's been closely following the Syrian standoff. Thanks for joining us here on RT. Britain's push has already been rebuffed by other EU nations like Germany and Sweden, which say more arms simply means more deaths. Why is the UK seemingly so keen to help the rebels militarily?
Well, I think we've got to understand that the UK is hell-bent on violent regime change in Syria. It's not, they never from the outset of this wanted a sort of peaceful transition in Syria or peaceful dialogue between the government and the opposition. They've worked against that all the way along. You know, we've had a fire raging in Syria and the British government, all it wants to do is pour petrol on the flames. It doesn't want to pour water over the flames. And at this very moment, we've got breaks in the Syrian opposition. We've got a faction that actually wants to talk directly with President Assad and the Syrian government. And what's William Hague doing? He's going all out to try and lift the arms embargo. And I think this is criminally irresponsible of him.
Now, UN investigators say the rebels have become more radicalised by foreign fighters from other Arab nations and that they also commit atrocities alongside government forces. So if that's the case, why is Britain still pushing for military aid for the opposition?
Well, I think Britain, as I've said before, is hell-bent on getting Assad and the Ba'ath Party out of power in Syria. The last thing they really want is a democratic Syria, because if there were, free elections tomorrow in Syria with all parties standing, it's likely the Ba'ath Party would do quite well, if not with an outright majority, would actually form a coalition with somebody else. And the West doesn't want that. So the West wants a sort of violent regime change here by backing opposition. And as the report clearly states, it's been outside actors, international actors like Britain, who have been helping to sort of fuel this conflict and prevent a peaceful solution to it.
And the government and rebels are both accused of committing war crimes, as we've been saying. But the UN human rights chief is calling on just President Assad to be taken to the International Criminal Court. Why an apparently one-sided approach?
Well, this is very inconsistent, isn't it? I mean, if war crimes have been committed by both sides, then let's prosecute both sides. Let's prosecute everyone who has been committing war crimes. But I'm afraid that this shows political bias, because all we're getting again is talk about indicting President Assad and leading Syrian officials. This is all wrong. If there's evidence of war crimes against rebel commanders, let them be indicted. And I fear what's happening here, Kerry, is this is a political move to kind of put more pressure on Damascus. Because if we think back to 1999, the NATO bombing of Yugoslavia, in the height of that conflict, there was an indictment issued against President Milosevic for war crimes. During the NATO bombardment of Libya, there was an indictment against Colonel Gaddafi for war crimes. And I'm just worried that this is part of this trend that, to increase pressure on Damascus, we'll have an indictment on the Syrian government. Well, if people have committed war crimes, they should answer for them, but it has to be applied equally.
Interestingly, Navi Pillay has also called on the Security Council to take action against President Assad, which would possibly include military intervention. Just how likely is that? Is the call, would it be pursued, do you think, under the guise of human rights protection, for example?
Well, we've got the government in the UK as a neocon government, and they would very much, I think, prefer that option. I think William Hague is a neocon. He strongly supported the Iraq War. We've got a neocon faction in America led by people like McCain and Lieberman. But I'm not sure President Obama is wanting to go down that line. I think it's pretty clear that he doesn't want to do that. And so we're in this sort of impasse now. We've got a split in the Syrian opposition. Large sections of it actually want to negotiate directly with Damascus. And, Curry, this problem could be sorted out very quickly if countries like Britain, if the countries that have been stoking it up actually said to the rebels, look, go and negotiate directly with President Assad and the Syrian government, come to some kind of compromise. We've got a new constitution in Syria that provides for democratic elections. That's the way to solve this democratically. But the people who've got blood on their hands are the people out from the outside who really don't want a peaceful solution. They want violent regime change. They want President Assad's head on a plate. And they're the ones really who should change their policies.
OK, we'll leave it there. Journalist Neil Clark and contributor for The Guardian newspaper. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Guy.